So hello and welcome back to Red Fox Classics and the continuing saga of this Mark II GT6 Bonnet. So the car has been off the road since 1983. It got part stripped at some point and the bonnet got part disassembled. So that left, when I got it, no wheel arch in this side, no D-plate or reinforcing panel, and the bonnet hinge tube I had was a purple one. This is a white car, so one from somewhere else, and it was rotten. So I've had to get a new one and replace it. Now I've just fixed in the sort of inner strengthener that goes like in there, along that sort of line, and the wheel arch, after having mostly repaired the wheel arch. I just got the bonnet back on the car, and it won't go back and sit where it was when I did all the test fitting. So that's a bit annoying. So what I found is, really the bonnet could do with going back, but it won't, because this is hitting on the inner hinge bracket thing. Now, this wasn't the case beforehand, but whatever, it is the case now, because, you know, the wheel arch and this strengthener thing are in place, they're welded, they are not coming out. That means the bonnet tube can't really move back and forth, because you see there's that curve over the wheel arch, that's keeping it where it is, can't go anywhere. But what I have noticed is that, if you can see, very well, there's room in this slot to be able to go further back, but it's hitting this end. Now I've measured on the original side, and this should be, or on the original side, this is further away from the edge of that slot, which makes sense because you should be able to go all the way, you'd get your adjustment all the way. So I'm just cut along there, move it out a bit. Well, cut it along there, make sure the bonnet's going to fit, or fit where I want it to, and then I'll just weld this faceplate back on. May need to revisit these at some point with the bumper again, so I might just cut them and move them so that the bumper I've got is going to sit nicely where I want it on this car. But for the moment, let's get this end lopped off, hold out a bit, get the bonnet to fit in a good place, and then it's time to start removing the wing. Okay, so I got that cut and welded up. Still needs tidying up, and I need to check what the back's like, but I managed to burn a great big hole through it, so I've probably got penetration. And bonnet's back on, back closed. I'm back down to the same sort of gaps as I had before. This little bit here is a little wide, this is a little wide, that side's fine. This bonnet to sill gap is too tight, but I'm pretty certain this is a cover sill, so I'm not too worried because I'm going to have to do work on the sill. I think this whole door could do with going up a bit as well. You can kind of see here this is low, so I might just do that so the door's in a better position. That looks alright, though possibly you could possibly raise the front of the bonnet a little bit. I'll do that. Try and raise this door. That door feels like it's in a... Yeah, I'm not sure about the door. But this is obviously horrendous, but that was like that. And I can even see this sill is not... It's sort of... You can tell by looking it's kind of further out there than there. So, yeah. Anyway, it's coming off. The important thing though is scuttle the bonnet is fine. And that's the hardest thing to do anything about. You know, everything else is kind of to play with at the moment, but also not worrying about that side right at this moment. It's this side, and what I'm going to do now is start taking the wing off. Quite often I don't bother drilling out spot welds because it's easier to just lop off most of the panel and grind away the remaining bits. But in this case, I kind of want to keep the wing as intact as possible, so I can potentially put it back on. So if I, as well as drilling out the spot welds, I give myself some Cleco locating holes. I'm going to stick it back on and see what it looked like, just to check, you know, versus the replacement one. So yeah, I am going to get drilling. Just had this thought, I've not seen this done anywhere else. I've just given this a bit of a spray with some more white paint, and the spot welds are all nice and visible now, which is great. We're going to give that a second or two to dry before I do anything further. I've just been poking around in here a bit. This reinforcement bracket that holds the bonnet cone and kind of keeps the shape of the trailing edge of the wing is tucked under the edge of the wing, and then it had a bit of braze there, a little bit of braze there, which I've just split. And I don't think it's held on by anything else, but I think that this bottom bit is still brazed to this face of the wing. So I'm just going to continue, like, drill spot welds out and see how it moves when I get to that stage. There we go then. Put stuff back and then taking more away. So the bit actually I got stuck on in the end, I didn't find, we focus? Yes. I didn't find this one little spot weld at the bottom of this reinforcement piece. But fortunately it snapped. So we're all good there. It actually came off relatively easily, which is nice. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of a fill-in of all of these. I didn't go all the way through, but I went quite deep everywhere. But, you know, that's fine. What I'm going to do right now, though, is get that little bit cleaned up, these cleaned up, you know, anywhere that's going to stop me putting the new wing on, just have a look. And then we'll put the new wing on and have a look. So not wholly unexpectedly, the fit's a bit poor, well, or not super great at least. So it seems to be a bit, well, it seems a bit long at the top. And the bit that's going to take some thinking about is under here, because look, it's quite a way off of this D-plate. And it could still, this D-plate could still be wrong. I spent a lot of time here, obviously, but, you know, is this bit wrong? It is the original metal. It'd be quite difficult to see how it could drop down by that much, because that's what, 6 or 8 millimeters. It's quite a bit. You know, obviously there's some flex in there, but it's met up quite nicely with at least what remains of this inner wheel arch lip in here. So that's kind of promising. This along here doesn't look too terrible. You know, there's obviously a bit of movement available in this reinforcement piece. That's why I say it looks like it might be too long at the top, because it's, when I first put it on, it stuck out at the front, and here it seems like there's a lot of room there. Anyway, don't know. Obviously getting that to meet up, that seems to, you know, that swage line follows onto here, which is good. This angle I'm not sure about. This angle. That sweep, that curve you know, this bit's missing obviously, but it feels like that's not too terrible. I don't know. Probably the thing to do is get a couple of Clecos and screws and whatever in as the first test fit. Kind of the thing to do around down here as well will be to fit the valance, because it's getting to the point of, if it looks right, it is right, but that valance doesn't really look right. So I'm not sure if I really want to test against it. I mean, I thought about repairing it, but that's gone. That's gone full of filler and fiberglass. The same there. And I wonder if it's worth it. I think I probably should, as I said, get myself some temporary fastenings in and try opening, well, try closing the bonnet and seeing where it sits. So I was worried for a while because this seemed to be very large, but once I'd latched the other side, actually it started looking much better. However, this is right on this sill, and this wing to door gap is rubbish. Plus this is rather bulging out. Now again, it's difficult to know what to do, because I'm pretty sure this sill is crap. I think this is too deep here. I'm just going to go and quick measure. Okay, two things. This and this appear to be the same height, both at the rear and just right behind this pressing for the handle or catch. This lip is a little bit bigger on the new wing, about 1 millimetre bigger. So me putting it right at the top, you know, matching up the top lips was pushing this a bit further down. This is still right on this sill, but I'm pretty convinced the sill is incorrect, because there's no way. I mean, we can't have the bonnet. The bonnet top can't go. The bonnet top is in the right place, because you know that's flush, which is what it should be. The wings at the rear are the same size, so you know this might shift by a tiny fraction, but it's in about the right place. And it does sit flat along the sill, even if the sill is not correct. So the bonnet can't shut anymore. This gap's a bit rubbish. But the door, I need to fiddle with the door as well, because the door needs to come up, and it does need to come out, I think. That's my neighbours are trying to train their dogs to, the gold retrievers to retrieve, and that's just a starting pistol. Another thing, I measured on this seam, and it's about 5¼ inches, so not the 5½ that this new wing is. Likely, I'm still not going to cut anything yet, but it's likely that I'm going to stick with where this is, because that matches where that is, even if this is a completely rebuilt bonnet. But it's suggesting this is a bit too long. We can deal with, I mean, you can also see it's not impressive, it's not very good around here. That's going to have to be squashed in a bit. Anyway, for a test fit, I think this is pretty good. So, what next? I guess I'm probably going to prevaricate a bit before committing to drilling any holes or anything like that. I might make myself a bit of a sweep or template of this. You know, this bit's been rebuilt as well, but I can kind of compare that and the Spitfire on the other side of the GT6 bonnet and see, do things seem to match up? Because I want to get the bottom of the wing sitting in the right place, and then I can build a bit of wheel arch to it, and that'll determine the shape it's going to stay. So I just want to figure out if it's kind of tucked in or not, tucked in enough or not. And it looks quite, you know, that sweep, that curve looks okay. With, you know, the wheels a bit steered to the right. It's a bit straighter, but you can see it's sitting all right in the wheel arch. I'm feeling quite positive. So I've had the wing off, and with doing all this section, and the wheel arch, I was trying very hard to put things back in the place that they come from, which, you know, does make sense. But then my only thing that was a reference and a connection between the front of the bonnet and the rest of the bonnet was the wheel arch, which I was already suspicious of being a bit distorted. So I was just wondering, you know, I kept talking about, we'll have to fix this gap, but I was going to do that. So I've had a think and a play and a research, and I decided to cut this connection between the bonnet top and the wheel arch away, because then that's let me move the bonnet top a little bit back. Now we've got, well, see it's slipped a bit now, but I can get a much better gap there. Now over the other side it's gone a bit weird, but I think that's because I now need to go and play with the bonnet cone over that side and bring it into agreement with what the new, less twisted shape of the bonnet is. Because I was noticing when I had it on the ground it wouldn't sit flat. This corner seemed, well, high when you're thinking about it sitting like on its rear. So I think that kind of makes sense. Anyway, I shall keep playing and see where I get to. So I've done a lot of adjusting. The passenger side bonnet hinge I had to tilt up a little bit. I first lowered and then raised the latch engagement hook thing. On the far side, I've had to move this by a tiny amount, just a bit more than I thought I was going to be able to get away with not actually having to try and grind these remains of welds off. But actually I need to move it a tiny bit further. But you can see it's not very much at all. But that has led me to, this is my new measure, a pretty even gap all the way along. So I want to fit the wing, so I'm going to have to, well, I was going to do it again, but I'm going to have to clean up those remains of plug welds, and then I'm going to just tack this little bit in place and try the wing and see how that goes. So there's that on, just with a couple of tacks on the edge in case I change my mind again. So I'll stick the wing on and we'll have a look. So I've got a bit of a, I've not clamped it here, because if I do, pinches this in and it mucks up this gap, and it looks like the wing, it looks like that pressing line isn't entirely straight. So sort of explains that. This is probably a bit too tight, but then there's some adjustment, you know, going to happen when it gets folded round the inner structure. Then it goes down to being way too tight here. I'm not quite sure how that's happened. We're still looking, and we're just about sitting on this sill. So I've pulled the front up a little bit. That's not, so I've adjusted the front bonnet hinge up a little bit. It's not really solved that particular problem. I think what I've got to do, I want to loosen the door off and move the door up, because it could definitely stand to come up, and that's kind of, you know, I've now got the bonnet's level with the scuttle, top of this wing is level with the scuttle, and the door is definitely low, so same there. It's a little bit, could do with coming up a little bit. So I'm going to see if I can get that loose first. But you know how these things go. Simple job. Undo 6 bolts. Meant I had to uncover the Spitfire, get it outside, so I actually opened the door far enough, move the door check strap, which is a bit knackered, which is a shame, and then fight those countersunk crosshead screws out. The one actually came out and the other one didn't. They'd been out before, and this one the threads had been shredded, but it came out easily enough once I'd managed to get this bolt extractor thing into it. I'm seeing more work needed in this door. There's been a bit of repair to that check strap, a bit of a globby one, which is not very nice. Anyway, you know, it's still a pretty good door. And with the hopefully easier hex head set screws. I think might have had my autofocus settings off for some time. It's annoying. Anyway, so I've got at least one of these, at least one of the bolts, hinge bolts has been cross-threaded, so I don't know the state of the plate inside. Fortunately, this one's easy. I think this one's easier to get to. That one's definitely boxed. But I've been fiddling with the door, and I think, you know, as one job leads to another, I have to just take it off, figure out what's going on inside here, possibly fix this hinge plate, and then move on to adjusting it. Oh, so I've got the lower door plate out, hinge bolt plate. That thread is pretty knackered, and also the plate's been bent at some point, so that needs sorting. And the top of this bit where the upper plate is had been pushed in, so I got the the dent puller, you know, it welds on. It's like a little spot welder that welds on a pin. You have a slide hammer to pull out the dent, and well, this metal's quite thin, so we've gone all the way through around here. So I'm going to have to place out a little bit of this. Going to have to get that cleaned up and flattened and not welded on the back, because those threads, as I said, are pretty knackered. Anyway, so yeah, that's got to be done. And where were we? Oh yeah, trying to fit the door. So I can't really adjust that until these are done, and you know, it just keeps going. So I'll get these bits sorted, and then the door, and then back to the wing. Okay, so I've had one of the hinge plates out and I had the welded nut on because the threads were really mashed. Bolts are actually alright, good enough to use at the moment. I made myself a little cut out there. So I'm going to get these welded in, get that nice and flat. I'm going to be able to put the door back on. But I kind of... So when the bonnet is closed, it hits this sill. This sill, well, this bit is not original because you can see it's over the top of something else. You can see there's some quite poor plug welds in there. Now I was confused before, you know, because it looks like this has not been off. And it looks like this is the original seam, so that was throwing me. I've had a look back down here again, and look, there's a plug weld there, so this is a cover. This is a partial cover sill. Beside the point. Right, so while that was going, I just chucked this in. Let's cap two plates back. Yeah, so this sill is a partial replacement, I think. And it definitely seems too high, and that would make sense given it looks like it's been put over the top of the remains of the original one. So, the fact that the bonnet can fit the sill very well is not surprising. And I'm just wondering if it... Well, okay, so I'm definitely not going to weld the wing on until I've done something about this. Okay, so what do we know? There's definitely welding on this sill. It looks like it's gone over the top of the old one. So the fact that the bonnet touches it, well, makes sense really, because if this is over the top of the one that's in, I'm going to say right place, the original place, then it being too high is perfectly logical. So what it means, probably should do, don't really want to. I wanted to finish this corner of the bonnet because I kind of like doing, you know, I don't like jumping around. Just, you know, work through one thing, get it finished. But it seems like the better move here is going to be get the door hung on. Well, get this sorted, get the door hung on as planned. Fit up the door relative to the rear of the wing and the bonnet and see what that looks like. Then I can at least get the wing temporarily fixed in place. And I think I probably shouldn't weld it. I shouldn't weld it till I fix the sill. The only question is, should I go and do the wheel arch? Because I've got to rebuild the lip to go inside the wheel arch there. I should hold off on doing that. Because as well as this bit to deal with, and I don't want to cut the wing and then decide I was wrong. Anyway, all this comes down to I don't want to take the sill off until I've done something about this, because obviously with the GT6 versus the Spitfire, you've got the roof that's kind of holding everything in place. They suffer much less from, or don't suffer from, bulkhead sag because they've got the roof as well as the sill. But this is seriously weak. I mean, that's vinyl. That's rotten. So there's not a great deal of windscreen frame that's actually holding the windscreen frame. Sorry, there's not a great deal of metal that's actually holding this windscreen frame together. So potentially if I took the sill off, that could distort, which I don't want. Which means the next job might have to be doing something about this corner. Possibly not repairing it completely, but maybe doing the outer face and this lip so that it's strong, at least. Which would then leave me in a position where I was happy enough to take off the sill and start doing those repairs. I feel like that's probably going to be the plan. But anyway, enough talking. I'm going to get this welded in and get the door on, and we'll have a look what that's like. Alright, there's that in. I deliberately used a slightly thicker bit of metal than was there originally, which let me kind of overgrind it, which I want to be able to do because, you know, this needs to be a nice flat surface in the plane of the rest of the A-post to be able to, you know, work as the door hinge. I'm just noticing now that this has slipped a little bit, so I'm Gonna have to open that hole up a little bit to let me have the same range as I previously did. Anyway, I'll do that and get the door on. So I've spent some more time playing around. I think the door is probably in the best place it's going to be, and the wing and the bonnet seem reasonable at the moment. Anyway, I'm pretty sure this is a factory door, but this line, you can see at the top there, kicks out, and then it gets wider. So I don't think that line's perfect. I would be happy to build up the door a little bit. I've actually bent this flange up a little bit to meet better with the scuttle. Still a little bit low, but it won't go any higher. Bonnet gap's good. I've played with the hinges again, but the bonnet scuttle gap I'm happy with on both sides. I've managed to make this a bit better, but I've also noticed that line from the top of the door down to here is not completely straight. And you can see possibly there it dips in a little bit. And this line down here on the edge of this panel is also not completely straight. So I think for the moment this is alright, because I'm pretty sure what I want to do now is leave the bonnet for a bit and work towards starting to deal with the sill and all that associated stuff. Depending on how the sill can go on, the wing may be able to shuffle a little bit. Probably not that much, but still. So what I'm going to do is, I think, accept this as my initial wing position, put some clecos in so I can use my clamps for other things, and start looking at this corner of the windscreen frame. Because, as I said, I don't want to start taking the sill out till I've got some structure in the windscreen, because, you know, there's not a lot holding this together. So I think at least try and make this front bit and this section in here, because the rest of it will need to be done when the windscreen's off the car. Right, so I got some holes drilled, get that fixed on for the moment, and then come and look at this. Right, so as I've got this nice template available, I'm going to try the masking tape method again. So obviously there's much more than we're going to need, but can always cut some stuff off. It's almost the same colour as the car. Just stick it on there. And fiberglass behind it. So it sticks. Okay, right. I am going to get this cut out some metal. Start seeing if we can get this shape. There's not much to it, so I'm quite hopeful. Right, so that's what I've got. It's fitting nicely with that shape there. And so the first thing I want to do is try and make that step, because I feel we need a slight curve, very, very slight curve. I feel I can do that with a hammer over a T-dolly. It just needs a tiny, tiny bit. Getting this in is going to be a bit harder. But I think what I'm going to try and do is so I got a hole punch, pneumatic hole punch, and on the other side there's a joggler. Now it won't give me anything it's not going to be quite as deep as this. I think if I do that, basically joggle this edge to start with, I can then work on improving, making that a bit more like this, because we've got a bit of a roll and then a sharp crease. So we can do the sharp crease, and then can we make the roll pattern? So I'm going to see how we can do that. You see that sort of thing. If we put that in here. I think it's a start. And then I'll just do it without, and then I will move on to the hammer and see how that goes. So aside from the horrible hammer rash, which hopefully I'll be able to get rid of, it's starting to look like that'll work. It's starting to take shape. But that's all I've got time for today, I think, so I'll come back to this later. Right, so this is where I've got to. First of all, I took the T-dolly and I tried to planish out the worst of my hammer marks on this face. Then also on the T-dolly I put this little curve in just to match that radius, and I've had to put a little bit of shrink into here and just on the very edge of there with the kick shrinker. Then in here I again took a masking tape template to give me the curve at the edge, made that in metal, and I've just clamped this on here and I'm about to start to weld in that corner. Now I know it's going to make the geometry ever so slightly wrong because this is now a piece that will sit over the top of the shape of the windscreen frame. But I can't think of any other way really to maintain this shape and manage to get this thing in at the right angle and keep it there as well, because you see I'm having to clamp it right on the inner lip here. So I'm going to try it. I think it'll be fine. I think I can get any inconsistency down into this area where it'll hide underneath the seal. Or worst case, I can run a bead of weld on the inside and use the grinder to kind of dress up and make the shape a little better. Anyway, so I'll get that welded in, providing everything seems alright. Because I weld it on the outside, weld it on the inside, cut this off, and dress it to shape, and then start looking at, can we get it fit in here? That's welded on the inside, seems to be fitting alright. So I welded back as well, grind it down flush on this face, more or less, and I found I'm going to have to weld the edge again. Yeah, you can just see there, you can see the two pieces of metal still. So because I'm going to want to grind it to this sort of profile, I'm going to do that again. But the shape is looking good. It's sitting there. It's looking like it'll drop in okay, just reasonably. So I am quite pleased with how that's gone. Obviously it won't sit down properly because of all the weld on the back, but that won't matter. So yeah, more welding, more grinding, then try and fit it. It's less and less of this windscreen frame here than I thought. A lot of it was just the seal. So anyway, I've been cleaning up. I've done that little quick trim. And what I'm going to be doing now is, see, it won't sit, because of the weld in that corner, I can't quite sit it right on there. So I'm going to cut away the very edges here and then start to try and fit it up. So I cut away some. The gutter looks quite good, but actually it's bubbling all the way up, so there would be nothing to be gained by trying to save it. I did on my Herald. I cut the gutters off and I tried to weld in a bit of steel to save them, but this is like warping all over the place, and all it is, it's a bit of metal with a bend in it, and you can go and pay what, 15-20 quid for that. No, we can bend some metal. Anyway, yeah, I'll get those cut off. Probably this as well, there's not a lot of it left. I'm going a bit higher here because we've got this in the corner, and also because, as I've been saying, I want to stabilise the windscreen frame, and that means really going into some metal where there's actually the back of the windscreen frame, because this is, at the moment, this is held on by the gutter. The thing that worries me though is I can see signs, it looks like there's brass here, which suggests there's some brazing, and that might make things hard, but whatever. Yeah, so I'll lop these bits off and start to get it fitted. So that's trimmed and tacked, and it seems alright. I just cut away everything there. There was nothing left to even pretend to attempt to weld to. So yeah, spare screen's actually looking quite attractive now. There's quite a lot gone in here. But we shall persevere, I guess. I'm going to get as much of this welded in as possible, and I think I'm going to put myself like just a little brace between those two pieces, just to keep some of that structure, well, make some structure exist somewhat. Well, I've got it tacked. So I've got it welded on the kind of solid edges. I'm going to try and go along that curve as well. I'm feeling it may want to come off, but not sure. Also, the signs of brazing seem to have disappeared, which is nice. I have, down at the bottom there, put in a little bit of reinforcement. I'm going to do the same kind of across the back of that kind of gutter piece, or from from the bit I've already welded on to the inner bit where the door seal would sit, just to give myself a bit more, reduce the chance of wobble. So I'll get that done. Right, there's it, as fully welded as it's going to get for the moment. Quite tempted to grind this back, but I think I should leave it till I'm able to see the other side, because either, you know, this lip might want fully replacing, or I might be able to weld on the back, whatever. I don't know, but I think it's best to leave it for the second, especially as you can see, rust in between there. Got that extra bit of stabiliser in, and it's, well, it felt solid before, but I'm more comfortable with feeling like it's going to hold the roof up. Yeah, and that feels quite nice and smooth. It kind of feels like that might be a bit low. General shape seems alright. I've got a straight line down there, you know, it's starting to curve away down there. Looks quite reasonably similar to the example up there. So I think I'm going to remain alright with it for the moment. And it's a little ding down here, but that could be filled. I think I don't have anything any tools to do better at the moment. I mean, this is the sort of thing you could do with a bead roller. I've not got a bead roller. So yeah, I think that's good for now. And next job is going to be drop off this sill, I think. I'm feeling like this might be the end of episode time. I don't really know. So let's film this and maybe it'll change. And you won't see this ever. Anyway, so what we've done, we've got this wing test fitted and in a reasonably good position. Got the bonnet again adjusted to cope with the wing fitment and all that sort of checked over. Started to explore, where's my door? Yep. Started to explore the door fitment and decided that actually it's time to deal with the sill, to deal with the bonnet and door and sill gap all as one thing, and then detoured to the windscreen frame to make sure that the body stays in the right place, or the body stays in the same sort of shape while the sill gets taken off. So next time I think we'll be straight onto the sill, and all that remains to say is thanks for watching, thanks for commenting, thanks for subscribing. If you got this far and you're not subscribed, please hit that button and you'll see what happens next, and I'll see you next time.